Hello everybody, we are at BlerdCon and I am here with Greg Anderson Elysée. He is a part of a comic right now and I am interested to know how he started up with the representation that is also in his comics. So what made you passionate about starting this off?
So, as I said, my name is Greg Anderson Elysée, born and raised Brooklyn, New York, and Haitian background. And for me, I've always had an interest in, Greek mythology, European fairy tales and stuff like that. But as I got older, got into high school and college, I started being more interested in what other cultures out there, mainly black cultures. Starting with a lot of Haitian mythology and Haitian traditions, our roots and everything like that. I thought that just blew my mind, realizing, wait, there's so much out there that we're not being educated on, except we're being taught a lot of it is evil, devil worship and stuff like that. Because you know how they try to do
Christian
us.
folk be doing.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and who tried to push that on us?
Right, you ain't slick.
I ain't gonna talk too much about that. But essentially, when I went to college, I started taking college elective courses, especially on Black history and Black literature, and we learned so much, from Toni Morrison. She would incorporate a lot of Black traditions and folklore tales and stuff like that into her stuff, and I started learning more about the Black gods, whether it's from African American folk tales like John Henry to Caribbean, to a lot of the Caribbean coming from West Africa. And from there, I would ask some of my friends sometimes, oh, are you familiar with, say, Anansi the spider at the time? Now a lot of people know who Anansi is because, Orlando Jones blew everyone away.
Right.
But there was a period where the only time some of us knew who Anansi was if you watched an episode of Gargoyles or Static Shock, or you saw a PBS special that had the Anansi, or you had a special Anansi book. But for the most part, they didn't know who Anansi was, but they would know who Heracles and Zeus is, and Thor, and Odin, Cinderella. So we know all that stuff.
Right.
We're required to know that actually in education. We're not required to know who any of the Black gods are. And if you have a teacher who's willing to teach you John Henry and Black History Month, you're not really going to learn too much. So I wanted to try to showcase, a lot of the gods and the heroes that we have from various Black cultures, and that we can do a lot of amazing, crazy stories, and also honor them with a lot of respect, and just modernize them, showcase that these characters can continue to live, our characters can continue to live and have a legacy. And it's not being the legacy of Anansi the spider, who's the god of stories, and just reclaiming our roots, reclaiming our stories, and having fun with it.
Absolutely. Now, what was the process like to start this comic for you? Was it an easy start? You just needed to reach out to your people, or was there a process to getting your comic published, basically?
So I always say when it comes to making comics, it's both. It's not as hard as people think it is, but it's not as easy at the same time. And I feel like it takes someone who's made comics to understand exactly what I mean by that. Because there's a lot of people who get into their heads oh crap, making a comic, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. But once you learn the step-by-steps, which is essentially start off with an idea, flesh out your concept, find an artist, everything eventually falls into place, and then you find somebody that will help, point you in the direction. Oh, you need an ISBN code? This is where you go to get one. Why do you need an ISBN code? This is why. Then you start to realize, oh, this is actually way more simpler than I thought. And then going to conventions, finding awesome people to interview you, and trying to get the word out, and you just got to do your thing. But a lot of it is also, one advice, if you're a writer, you're not an artist, save as much money as possible, because you want somebody who's very professional, someone that you can ask around, hey, how is this artist? And they can say, this person is dope. You got to make sure that you could afford them, because if you trying to cheapen your artist, you're going to get some cheap art, and then no one's going to buy your shit. There's some people who buy out of pity, oh, you're a Black artist, I'll help support you. But you want someone who, you want the fans to really be inspired by your work.
Absolutely.
And so invest in as much as you can in your own self and your own work.
Absolutely. Now, with your art style, who inspired you, and if not, how did you get to this point within your art?
Well, for me, I'm a writer, but I have different artists that work with me.
Okay.
And I'm just a huge fan of various types of artwork, so which is why in every Is Not a Story I have a different artist. And I like to experiment a lot. You know, I like to experiment with my storytelling. And sometimes I like to find an artist who will help with the theme that I'm going for with that particular story.
But what were we saying? Your art style, so you base off different stories, you look for different artists for different stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we never get the same thing.
No, not for the most part.
Okay.
Sometimes I do have repeating artists that come back because it's just everything just flowed and the schedule just works out.
Yeah.
But even then, sometimes they'll switch up a little bit of their styles, or they've improved since last time, and sometimes they seem like a completely different artist. And like David Brame is an artist that I've worked with a couple of times. We've done a couple of his Nana shorts, and he likes to experiment and change up a little bit all the time. So it's never the same thing. Even in our trading cards, which I'll show real quick. Like even with our trading cards, David Brame is an artist on every single one of them, and this is just one set, and we have another set. If you notice each character, he sort of does something different.
There's a different style to each,
And I've had people thinking that maybe, oh, these are different artists, and I'm like, nah, this is a whole one person, you know, so yeah.
Honestly, that's admirable because, you know, a lot of artists just have that one specific style.
Yeah.
And so seeing that there's so many different art, and then you see the different color schemes, like this is more pop, this is more grungy, it's beautiful.
Yeah. David, you see? I'm pimping you out, bro. Got you.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching my interview with Amari and Greg. Make sure you stay tuned to the next interview where I ask some fangirl questions to the writer and co-creator of the Tuskegee Heirs, a comic that focuses on educating the youth and showing them their history. See you then.